Let's talk about the planets. There are 9 planets in Vedic astrology, in Indian astrology. I'll tell you a story related to these 9 planets. So they say that Sun, the Surya Bhagwan, is the king of all planets. He is royalty, he's the ruler, he's the emperor. His wife was Moon. Now, the king is a very great being, but the king also has a tendency to be a little inflexible, a little stubborn, a little dominating, a little difficult to live with, really. Sun is a fiery planet. Moon is a watery planet. And you know what happens when fire and water come together. For the most part, it is the water that gets extinguished. So Moon was having a lot of problems living with the sun god. She found him brilliant, of course, no doubt about that, but also a little aggressive, a little stubborn, a little inflexible, a little unwilling to have a conversation. Sun represents my way or the highway to the greatest extent. So they say that unable to bear the heat of the sun god, Moon ran away and she left her twin sister Chaya in her stead. She placed Chaya in the palace and escaped. Chaya in Hindi is shadow. So shadow reacts a little better to the fire of the sun. Now Chaya and the sun god ended up having a baby because the sun god didn't know that it was not his wife but her twin sister who was living in his palace as his wife. When the son was born, Moon came rushing back to the palace, went before the sun god, accepted her mistake, and begged for forgiveness. What does the king do? He does whatever he wants to do. He's not bound by any rules or any norms or any procedures. There's no court that can dictate to the king what he must do. So what did the sun god do? Of course, he was furious with Moon, but he decided in his impetuosity to throw that child out, the child that had been born that Chaya had given birth to. The union of the sun god and Chaya had produced a child, and this child bore the brunt of the sun god's anger at his wife Moon. He threw the child out into the desert. Now, if you throw a newborn baby out into the desert, what is going to happen? Either that child is going to die very quickly, or the child is going to survive and become incredibly hard, incredibly tough, and incredibly dangerous. This child was Saturn. All of astrology is actually only the battle of Saturn with the sun god. Saturn wants revenge against his father, who was unfair, unjust, unwise, impetuous, rash, impulsive, unreasonable, in throwing that newborn baby out into the desert. That baby was not to blame for what had happened. The baby was a result of a mistake that had been made by Moon. Saturn swore revenge on his father. All of astrology is the battle of Saturn against Sun. What happened to Moon? Her life became even more difficult. The sun god became even more unreasonable. Her husband became even more difficult to live with. Which is why in Vedic astrology, if moon is far away from sun, she is powerful, she has radiance, she has strength. If moon is close to the sun god, that power keeps reducing, that energy keeps reducing. The ability to influence the horoscope keeps reducing. When sun and moon are together in the zodiac, it is the Amavasya night, the night of the new moon, when moon is absolutely dark, functionally at zero power. And when moon is 180 degrees away from sun, she is at her brightest. That is the night of the full moon. Because moon functions best when she is as far away from her husband as possible, because when she is close, he dominates her. He never lets her forget the mistake that she had made. And he does not really give her the freedom to operate with the sensitivity that she would want to. And what of the relationship of Saturn and moon? The problem had been created by the sun god, but at the root of it was the mistake of his mother, moon. Which is why in astrology, in Vedic astrology, whenever Saturn and moon are together, the horoscope is going to suffer. The horoscope is going to suffer because moon is going to get hit in a tremendous fashion. I will speak of what each planet represents later, but for now let me tell you that moon is naturally believed to be the Manaskarak, the significator of the mind. It is also the Matrikarak, the significator of the mother. But it is the Manaskarak as well. And when Saturn comes close to moon, Saturn brings as much pain to his mother as he possibly can. Which is why in Vedic astrology, whenever Saturn is placed close to moon, specifically in the house before moon, where moon is placed in the natal chart, when Saturn is transiting through the house where moon is actually positioned in the natal chart, and when Saturn is transiting through the house after the house where moon is positioned in the natal chart, the individual goes through what is known as the transit of Sadesati. The 7.5-year period where Saturn has almost complete control over the horoscope, and for the most part, in most cases, the individual will suffer and face incredible hardships in this time. A Sadesati is a very, very difficult phase for every individual. They say it is the time where your karma comes back to test you and where you must pay for the sins that you have committed in past lives. Saturn has caught up with his mother, and he's going to make his mother pay for the mistakes that she had made. We will come to the specifics of how the Saraswati operates later, but for now, just understand that Saturn